Good morning, sea wolves, or should I say morning. Not exactly the happiest of times. I guess you all know why, but that is no reason that we should not do this with something absolutely delicious in our cups. You know, it is one of those days where, you know, you might consider just, you know, a little extra to make all the bad thoughts go away. But here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that helps a lot, doesn't it? So yeah, let's just start right away with the bad news. Another UFO slash OVNI hit one of our favorite racers. Last night, unfortunately, it was Sam Davis' boat, Initiatives Cœur, that has incurred some damage. So far the team has been a little cryptic about what exactly has gone wrong and what exactly has been hit. Also no pictures or anything came out of the damage yet, so if there's any updates I will let you know throughout the day, but so far no information there. And at the same time, of course, the situation with Arkea Paprec is still also very precarious, basically, and Sebastian Simon on his way, at least course-wise, also to Cape Town, and still no word on whether he might retire or not. But there have been some pictures shared on the Twitter account of Arkea Paprec looking at the damage, and yeah, that does look very severe. So I would say that no matter what happens, if he's able to fix the casing of the foil, because that's the main problem. The fact that the foil's broken is of course really too bad. But it is possible to keep sailing without the foil if need be, or with, you know, part of the foil cut off, as we've seen now happen on Linked Out in this race. Obviously Alex Thompson has done so in the previous race and still became second. So although it affects the performance negatively, that's still possible. But as I understand it, there's also real damage to the casing, so kind of the tunnel that the foil, you know, slides up and down in, and that's where apparently the leak is also. And so yeah, that can be a lot harder to patch and fix. And yeah, if it's not possible to fix it, then I think it will be yeah, more or less sounds like he will have to retire. But no word on that yet. So probably his team and Simon are, you know, working on it really hard to see if they can fix that, and let's hope that they're able to do it. Same for Sam Davis on Initiatives Cœur. So the word right now is that she's obviously taking the speed out of the boat for a bit and is heading more towards Cape Town. That's mostly to stabilize and slow the boat down a little bit. The weather is still pretty intense up there. The sea state is still pretty intense up there. You know, 3 to 4 meter waves still, so not the easiest environment to be in when you have damage to the boat. And apparently they are still assessing the damage, and she's talking to her team, you know, seeing what they can do. So all we can really do is wait for updates of either of the teams, and you know, that's what we know about it so far. So I guess we will see what happens. And because many of you have emailed me yesterday and actually over the last few days asking me a lot about the UFOs and OVNIs, and you know, what is it they're hitting in the water, I thought I'd dedicate, you know, a good portion of the show to that today, to just kind of talk about what it likely is that they are hitting, and also a little bit the psychology of the fact that I'm seeing that a lot of people, at least that are watching my show, are you know, asking me questions or putting in the comments, you know, things like, you know, what does it all mean? I mean, how can you do a race where, you know, all the racers seem to be falling like flies right now, and you know, these are boats that cost millions. You know, what is the point of doing this, and you know, crossing already for like 2 weeks so many oceans in fact of distance, only to all crash into a UFO when you get to the Cape of Good Hope. What sense is there in that? But the truth is that those odds have always been that way. So we knew when this race started that more or less half of the boats, that's half of the boats, that 50% doesn't finish the race. And that's not because of UFOs, that's not because of weather, it's because of the confluence of all the different factors weighing on the boats, and the simple, undeniable fact that there is nothing that humans can build that will truly withstand Mother Nature and the passing of time. And especially in the ocean, in racing in the sea, which is, let's face it, basically a kind of acid bath, everything you put in the sea just eventually gets destroyed. And so no matter how strong they make these boats, there's essentially no way to build a boat that is a 100% proof for this journey, or for any sea journey. The Titanic, of course, is a perfect example here, in the sense that anybody claiming at any time that they made anything unsinkable should be very careful with those words, right? And that's something that psychologically, I think, I wrapped my head around that when this race started. So, like I literally said 3 days ago, I said what I'm going to be looking for in the next, 3 to 4 days as they go around the Cape is damage. Because of storms, because of the wave state, because of the strong currents there, and because it's one of the highest concentrations of garbage there, simply because an entire ocean is basically being pushed between two continents, and that means that also all the trash that's floating there is being pushed, kind of in a funnel there. So it's the confluence of everything you don't want on your sailing journey, all in one point. And it was to be expected that several of the boats would and still will get damaged here, and there's essentially not much the skippers can do about it. It's not 100% luck, so of course they're all trying to mitigate and do whatever they can to get through this without hurting their boat and themselves in any way, but they have to sleep. They can't stay 100% awake for the entire time. Many of the boats even have collision radar or LiDAR on their boats that are detecting some objects in front of the boat and can steer the boat either way, like slowing it down, basically turning the boat into the wind. If that happens, in order to avoid that, and still we are seeing that this happens. So, very, very hard, and not much really that we can do about it. And just to show, Hugo Boss was one of the boats with the most sensors and technology for forward-facing, collision detection. And he lost his rudder due to collision, most likely also. So there is just no guarantee. Also, we don't actually know for sure that it is actually garbage that the boats are hitting. Now, when you look at the picture, so when you look at the photo of the damaged foil of Arkea, for example, here, now that suggests very much an impact with something, right? You can clearly see the fact that something hard hit it there. So I think no doubt about the fact that he definitely hit something in the water. But there are also a lot of damages that sometimes may get written up to hitting something in the water, where maybe this is not the case. I vocalized this this intuitive kind of feeling of mine several days ago, and I've had a lot of really experts in the field approach me. Some even with already with calculations and stuff, with people, very knowledgeable people in some of the top universities of the world. Actually, we have a really great audience here at the Seals, I can tell you. And they do agree with my initial notion, at least, that the incredibly high rate at which especially the foilers seem to be getting hit does suggest, and there is definitely the possibility, that they are not so much hitting something in the water, but they are hitting the water itself. Because at some angles, water can be literally as hard as concrete. If you hit it with the right speed, if you hit it with the right sort of, if whatever object is straight to the wave and angular to the wave, you've all, made that jump into a pool or whatever when you fall really flat on the water, and it's like, well, that's, the surface tension of water can be really, really hard. And if you think about the amount of miles, the amount of kilometers that these boats are traveling around the world, literally 48,000 kilometers. So by far the longest trip anybody ever takes on a boat. They are going to encounter lots of different wave states and wave lengths and wave heights. So they will have waves that are very far apart. They'll have waves that are quite close together. They'll have very steep waves. They'll have waves that are very long, that are not so steep. And so the boat goes through everything. And every round surface, every wave, has around that round line somewhere an angle that the foils can hit just the wrong way. And we're talking about boats that going, 20, 25, sometimes 30 knots, so 30, miles an hour, which, in kilometers, somewhere between, let's say, 40 and maybe up to 60 kilometers per hour, which is, if you wreck a car at that speed, that can be terminal damage. You fly through the windshield. That is a lot of force. Now, these foils are built very strong, but the example of breaking in half in the last 2 days because of a wave crashing over, no one had expected that would be possible with a strong carbon boat. That's a new thing that happened there, and I'm sure there'll be lots of research into how that could have happened and what happened there, and maybe do an interview with some of the people at Arkea at some point to really talk about that in depth once they are ready to reveal some of what there happened, and I think that will be very interesting. But just saying that the possibility that the foils especially are actually just repeatedly hitting the water over this enormous long journey, it increases the chance that you hit the foil in a way that is just cannot take, or that it repeatedly gets hit with rhythm in a way that it just can't take. And as I also mentioned in an earlier video about damage, if you introduce enough vibration into almost anything, it will slowly wear down and destroy almost anything. These boats sail non-stop, so the pressure on everything is 24/7 all the time. And that's something that I don't think can be completely discounted. And so in the background there are conversations going around on maybe doing like a round table on this, and diving into this more and looking at it more, because obviously many of you are interested in this, and I think it's a valuable conversation to be had, and also to add to the safety, obviously, of our dear skippers. So then about the UFOs and the OVNIs themselves. So UFO, OVNI is basically the same thing. It's just the international English term and the French term. And what is it if they're hitting something in the water? Well, there are a few main suspects, of course. The first one being containers. So obviously there are a lot of containers around the world being shipped, and due to storms and the fact that containers are sometimes stacked very high, the boats can lose balance, and some of the top layers at the sides of these boats, unfortunately, every once in a while go overboard. We had a disaster with about 85 containers going overboard in a North Sea storm on an island, well, on the islands of Holland just this summer, which was a real disaster because they were full of baby stuff, diapers and things, and the beaches were just lined with trash. So, you know, containers going overboard is a real problem, and especially because containers are often still filled with air. They tend to hover right at the surface of the water, preventing, you know, an ideal collision object for a fast-moving sailboat to hit. So that is a serious problem, but fortunately there are some things being done about that. Obviously the owners of containers don't want to lose their precious cargo. The people that are losing, the shipping companies that are losing these containers are seeing some, you know, liability sometimes for the damage that they do. So they want to mitigate that liability, and so they are tracking containers better and better. There are some systems now that if a container goes overboard, it will basically punch a hole in the container so that it will eventually sink and you know, safely land on the bottom as opposed to staying floating on the surface. So that's something's being done, and I guess the different you know, rescue operations and salvage operations, as they get more experience with this, are getting better and better at locating and then, you know, removing if needed these containers. But the reality is that you know, a hard reality, but to recover a container with a cargo that's maybe, like, a container is about 1,000 euros or $1,000. That's about the value of an average shipping container. They're not super expensive, they're not super valuable in themselves. The cargo, if your container goes overboard, generally is ruined. You know, there will slowly on be water ingress, eventually they always will sink. And so the motivation for any company to recover a container that went overboard is very low, because the gain for a company that lost a container is almost nothing, right? To them personally, there's no real benefit to recovering it as to just letting it land on the ocean. And at the same time, the price, the amount of effort to find a container somewhere, maybe, you know, miles and miles offshore, and the danger in sending a boat out there with people in order to find it, putting a boat next to an object that can, you know, because of a wave or whatever, destroy that boat, getting close enough to hook on, you need divers or people to do something there. So it's a huge operation, even to recover just one container. And of course we all agree that that's the best thing, and that it would be great if there was some kind of system for recovering these things easily and cheaply, but unfortunately that's just not the reality. And that's why many of those containers, when they go overboard, they stay there. They just, you know, people assume that they will sink eventually, and the companies just write off the cost, and that's just the reality of what happens. The other thing that we see in the water is, of course, trash and plastic of many types. And although you know, in the Western first world this is also a problem, especially in the Corona time, like, it boggles my mind the fact that we have in Europe everywhere now these mouthpieces, and many of them are not biodegradable in any way. And you just know that all of those are going to end up in the ocean at some point, because many people just throw them on the street. You see them everywhere now. You know, we were fighting over banning, you know, plastic straws a while back before the Corona, and now we are just by the billions using these mouthpieces and throwing them away and creating a whole new problem for the oceans, which is truly, truly sad. But having said that, most of the plastic waste, of course, and something to the tune of like 85% of the worldwide waste that's in the ocean, is coming from basically the south of Asia, so China, India. I've lived in Asia for quite a while, and although I'm sometimes irritated to see, you know, trash in a marina here in Amsterdam, or see some floating objects, you know, in the North Sea when I'm sailing, or in lakes here. There is just no comparison. Like, if we want to solve that problem, you know, things have to really change in the East predominantly, because I have seen, you know, every day people, because there is no system for trash. I once had a very interesting conversation when I was living in Sri Lanka with a local there, because if you drive the highways in Asia, you will just see trash next to the highways everywhere, like just piles and piles of bottles and plastic bags and, you know, chips bags and all this type of stuff. And I was amazed. And I asked, you know, good local friend there, I said, what is up with this? You know, like we were having some local parties with the surfers and stuff to like remove it and go with bags and sort of clean sort of, you know, everything around Veligama and make sure that it will get a little bit improved there. But it just kept going back, and I asked him, like, what is this? And he told me that basically in Asia they've always had the culture, because they never had plastic. So, you know, it was coconuts or, you know, biodegradable food materials, wood, you know, things like this. And so anything they used, if you didn't need it anymore, you just throw it over your shoulder. And it's natural material, it's wood. It just, you know, will add to the environment, become food for some animal, or it'll just rot and, you know, provide nourishment for the ground. So there was never any issue with that. But the education level in many of these rural places in Asia is very low. So people are just not aware of the fact of what plastic does to the environment. And that culture of when you're done with something, you just throw it over your shoulder or you throw it out of the car window, literally, is still very much alive there. And it's just almost impossible to get that out, because there are other priorities. This is not, you know, a priority there. People have, you know, enough trouble putting food on the table and taking care of their kids and all this type of thing. So that is a very hard problem, and I've seen everything. Like one of the most beautiful beaches there, where I used to sometimes, you know, surf almost every day, you know, saw almost every night, you know, different shops there just put all their trash, bind it together, all of their plastic, and just dig a hole in the beach and just put it in and bury it. Every day, you know, 10, 20 shops just everywhere, fisheries and stuff, old nets, whatever, anything they needed to get rid of, it just went into the beach. And looking at that, I was like, what? But I understand, you know, like I've been there longer than a few days to sort of just judge what they're doing. And for them, that is just the best way. You know, if you'd ask them, like, why don't you put it somewhere, it would like take them a long journey and a lot of money to dispose it somewhere, because there just is no system to, you know, we have systems to pick up trash here in Amsterdam every day. We have special containers for different things. It just doesn't exist there. So that creates a lot of plastic waste, big and small, and, you know, it floats into the oceans. And yeah, the boats sometimes hit it. Also wood, so that's something that is not new. There have always been lots of places in the world where trees fall into rivers, and rivers eventually go into the sea. And it's something that you will find in, you know, the oldest sailing books and novels and reports, that sometimes boats would hit you know, floating trees in the sea, because they've always been there. And I would say that many of the situations with UFOs that we've seen now, I would say that something like a tree, it can be a palm tree or anything like that, hitting something like that, actually one of my biggest suspects. Like if you look at the damage on Arkea, for example, definitely big round indentation, could have absolutely been, you know, a floating palm tree or something like that that just went in the water off some beach somewhere and, you know, sent adrift. So I would say that the heavier floats, the heavier UFOs that we see destroying things, probably nothing to do with plastic pollution or anything like that. Small, really dangerous things, mostly tree trunks, because everything else sinks, right? But wood stays on the surface, and so wood also makes for just absolutely excellent UFOs. And so that's kind of the whole spectrum for everybody who was, you know, asking about that earlier. So we have some containers and some trash that comes out of there. You know, we have obviously the plastic pollution, but most of that is, you know, gets reduced to small plastics and is not really going to form a UFO, because most of it will sink. It's more fishing nets and this type of things that kind of tend to float a bit on the surface and, you know, get in your propeller and everything. But that's not destroying foils for the most part. Wood is the third one, which is my biggest suspect for what is most likely doing big damage to foils and stuff when it is an object that they're hitting. And the fourth, kind of the joker in this whole thing, the thing that we don't really hear a lot about, but what I think is very interesting to talk about more, is water. Is that they're not really hitting anything in the water, but that they're just hitting the water itself at some particular angles, at some particular velocities. That is, you know, over many of those type of hits, destroying the structural integrity of the foils. So that's kind of my input on UFOs, OVNIs. Do with it what you will, and you know, please discuss in the chat here, in the comments. Love to you know, keep that conversation going, because I think it really adds in the long term to the safety of all of us out there on the sea. Now let's look into the state of the race right now. So let me take you into my screen here, and let's look at what we are seeing right now. So obviously we see here both Arkea Paprec and now also Samantha Davis, both beautifully past the Cape of Good Hope, so major achievement there for both of them in the race anyways, but both of them heading up. That's not necessarily because they want to get to Cape Town now, but mostly just to slow the boat down and stabilize the boat so that they can work on it. And another thing that I also got a lot of questions about, by the way, is the situation of Simon Escoffier, Kevin Escoffier, sorry, on Jean Le Cam's boat, Yes We Can, and what's going on there, because Jean is obviously not heading to Cape Town, which you know, was reported earlier, but they have made arrangement for Kevin to be picked up by a Navy vessel a little bit later in the race. Actually, I think it's going to happen once they get near to the base here. So Alfred Ferris, somewhere near there, he will be picked up by a probably a Navy vessel, is the last that I heard on that. So you know, that's the situation there, and until then they'll be, I guess, dual-handed sailing. There were some questions also about what's going to happen. Is Jean just going to get a time allowance? Because you know, if he gets the time that he spent on this rescue deducted, you know, it also took him out of a more favorable place, you know, closer to the ice exclusion line with a shorter route, etc. All of that is actually taken into account fairly. So the Vendee Globe race organization will at some point convene a hearing, and they will, with a couple of experts, look at all the facts, at least that's how I understand it, and make a determination as to what is the fair way to handle this. And in that process also there is a option for, you know, Jean to protest, for example, if he doesn't, you know, agree with that decision. So there is a process there to make a fair determination in that. So no worries there, like Jean will be helped in that sense and will be hopefully fairly compensated for his heroic rescue actions. And the same goes, by the way, for all of the other boats that were involved. So now let's look at the leaders in the race. So Apivia still doing absolutely great, good speed. I guess because of the intensity of the storm, you know, went up a little bit. So you know, changed course a little bit. But yeah, doing very nicely there. We see, of course, now Louis Burton, Bureau Vallée 2. I guess that is one that, you know, here at the Seawolves we got right. So I think it was 6-7 days ago when he was, along with Initiatives Cœur, making that tack a lot earlier to go, you know, around the St. Helena system and just, you know, go south. And you know, many of us at that point said, like, you know, he was still 9th or 10th at that point, but we said if he keeps this line and if he keeps good, he will, you know, the systems will push him forward past everybody else. And Louis Burton has done it. So now a very, very earned second place. He's raced a very, very good strategy so far. Been the closest to the ice exclusion line by far of everybody, as clearly indicated by his path. And really cool to see that it's now been awarded with a second place. So amazing there. Of course, in 3 we have Thomas Bouillant of Linked Out, doing also really well, really high average speed still, so that's very nice. Went north also a little bit, I guess, to you know, make sure that he's not getting, you know, caught in that storm too much, but doing really, really well in that sense also. Now behind that we see a giant pack of boats. We talked about that yesterday, that it's really amazing that foiler and non-foiler, many of them have just made it to this location in the race more or less at the same speed. They've all arrived more or less at the same moment. So clear indication that at least up until this point, up until the Cape, foiler and non-foiler, it's just very, very competitive, and the skill of the sailor counts just as heavily as the fact of having a more advanced boat. And that goes for the newest models, also goes for the older upgraded models. We see just generally in the fleet that the boats have done similarly, and some of the non-foiling boats have done really brilliantly. Right now we see Jean Le Cam, despite everything, still in 7th place, but more or less, of course, a dead heat with the other 3 gentlemen that helped him. So Boris Herman there on Sea Explorer, Yannick Besthave, and we have here Damien Seguin on Group Apicil. They all were, of course, involved except for Apicil in the rescue, and doing really well there, and have only really just resumed racing. So we can't say much about that. Behind them we have Giancarlo Pedotte on the Prismian group, and we have Isabel Joske on Massif. Fortunately, she is doing really well, great speed, great position. She's, I guess, in 9th now. And let's just hope that she makes it through the Cape area unscathed, because right now she is the woman in front, I guess, with the falling out, or at least pausing of the race for a moment, of Sam Davis. So let's all root for her to get through with no other issues. Now then behind that, of course, we have Arkea Paprec, so we already talked about that. Then Maxime Sorel, still doing really well, actually. And behind there we have Roman Atanasio, and we have let's see, Banque Populaire, Clarice Kramer, the third girl right behind the other two, so doing really well also with her new boat. Alex clearly on his way to Cape Town now, so very much looking good there. And then of course we have the group with Pip Hare here in the end. And very interesting, because one of the boats here is L'Aquitaine, Armel Tripon, and he was very close to breaking the day record on speed several times. Didn't do it in the end, but very fast boat that. So interesting, like he seems to be doing okay. He had some problems, but he's been making really good speed, very much at the head of this kind of pack that they are in. And it seems like you'll have good wind also for the next few days, as this system, this is right now what we're looking at, but this low wind system is going to move up and kind of more or less out of the way, as you can see. So he'll be able to more or less pass straight through there unimpeded, and will have good wind, nice slight downwind sailing all the way more or less in 20 knots. It's almost as if the weather is really protecting him and saying, hey, Armel, we're really going to help you out here. As you can see, it looks really brilliant, the wind almost like perfectly following him. So I'll be interesting to see how he's doing. Like I have my eye on L'Aquitaine, and a week from now I'll be interested to see if maybe he somehow joins kind of the front of the field, and maybe even becomes competitive for the podium at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he is kind of a legendary sailor, of course, in a different class, but legendary sailor nonetheless. And it was a very new, untested boat, untested class for him also in that sense. But it seems that L'Aquitaine has found the stride. So I wouldn't count him out at all. And if he keeps doing this well on the average speeds, that might become competitive at some point. So keep your eye on Armel there. We have Arnaud Bossier here, and then of course we have Group Cetin and Didac Costa here in front of Pip. And Pip doing very well, actually, after all the anxiety of the last few days for going in the Southern Ocean. I'm sure you all saw the video, very nice. And then we have the back group, and as you can see, again, we talked about this 2 days ago, Cherelle is really making good time. It's unfortunate that this kind of no wind area actually got a bit bigger and started moving more and more to the west. And so we've seen all of them. This includes, by the way, the Jules Verne, because they were more heading toward the east before, but they've also changed their course to go a little bit more to the south and to the west in order to get around the St. Helena system, which was basically moving a little bit to the west again. And so that slowed him down a little bit. But Cherelle so far, doing really good speed-wise compared to this group over the last day or so. Still not making so much ground because he had to change course again. But he's close. He's within striking distance, I would say, of that aft group. And if he gets some good wind, which so far not really happening. So as you can see, staying more or less the same, patchy wind. 15 knots or so, good angle, but not really what you'd really like to see is a little bit more wind, of course. But yeah, I think he'll at least keep pace with the group right in front of him. And if at any point, so maybe Saturday, it looks a little bit better, a little bit darker green, coming up a little bit more up and a little bit more orange here, which I think he could reach. And at that point, we'll see him catch up faster, but so far he'll just have to bide his time, keep up good speed to keep with that group, and then pounce when the weather favors him. And so that's more or less the entire field. Maybe last thing to look at Apivia. Basically, he did absolutely everything right. Came through the Cape really good. Let's look at now. And let's just play how the weather is going to affect him. So yeah, basically expected to tack in about 2 hours or so. And then he'll start making his way down, really nicely following the wind, very close to the ice exclusion zone. So yeah, I think he's going to do really well also. So that is the state of the race today. A little bit of bad news at the head, but it looks actually really good for the rest of the fleet. Of course, we're still going to hope and pray that nobody else runs into any UFOs as they pass the Cape. But everybody send good thoughts and drink coffee while sending good thoughts. And I guess we will see what happens. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe. If you want to become a backer, patron, please go to the website seawolvestv.com and help me improve the show and make things like that special about the Jules Verne yesterday in the start of the show. Thank you all for your great comments and feedback on that. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to making lots more things like that. It just takes a lot of time, and that's why I really need backers to kind of give me the time so I can work on it. And also I'm amazed with how well the store is doing with the amazing t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and everything. Really cool. Please, once you get it, send me your pictures. Do something cool while wearing the the Seawolf gear. I'd love to see everybody, because we're a super international group here from all over the world. Having fun, maybe sailing with our super cool Seawolf gear. I think I'll jump like a hole in the air, as we say in Holland, and be like, wow, that's just amazing to see. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.
This is a song called Hammering Down the Wind, and it's dedicated to Pip Hare. They say I'm crazy, just stargazy, drifting out of sight. Gonna set my sails and catch the tide, sail into the night. Feel the buck and toss, chase the Southern Cross, race an albatross. Ocean is flowing, a big kite's blowing, canvas is clamoring and hammering down the wind. the breeze and me. Storm clouds or rainbow spray, sapphire or silver grey, can't fold these wings away when the ocean is flowing. The big